Well, hello, my sweet friends, and welcome back to another episode of Empire Secrets. I'm your host, Mariana Henninger, and I'm so excited. I feel like I haven't recorded an Empire Diaries episode in a very, very long time. So if you're new to the show, Empire Secrets is the behind the scenes, the crazy marketing secrets, the stuff that nobody talks about. But every other episode, more or less, I have what is called Empire Diaries, which is the behind the scenes as I build my business to 7 figures and beyond. So, welcome to an Empire Diaries episode. And we're mid December as of this recording. I just got back from an amazing vacation. We took a cruise down to the Bahamas and Key West, and I'd never been to Key West before. But I want to, it was fantastic. It was long overdue. My husband convinced me that taking trips to see family does not always equate to a vacation of our immediate family. So he convinced me we needed to go on this cruise. And whenever he wants to take a break, I never say no. I feel like it's so important to honor that for him, but also because he rarely wants to take a break. So whenever he says he wants to do it, I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm not going to say no to a cruise in the middle of winter. In fact, we were at the beach just like 3 days ago. I have some pictures of me in this gorgeous beach in the Bahamas called Cabbage Beach in Nassau. And 3 days, well, we basically, the day after we came to New York, and then that night we slept and we woke up to a ton of snow, which is still on the ground. So it was a fantastic contrast to go from Caribbean beach, warm water, beautiful, coconut drinking in the sand to tons of snow back in New York. So with that said, I feel like I love taking vacation before like the Christmas break because I feel, especially going to somewhere warm, I feel like I've now like reset my clock. And so it's almost like winter starting now versus, it's been cold for at least a month, if not more here in New York. So I feel like my battery is charged and I am so rested and refreshed and ready to take on a long winter of lots of work in my business. And it's just the perfect timing. With that, I want to talk today about my word for the year and a little bit about why. I don't want to go too deeply into it, but I just want to explain why I'm choosing this word and what word I was going to choose before and why. But it really ties in with this moment that I'm in my business. And the other thing that I want to talk about is I'm not going to talk about my 2026 goals. I'll probably leave that for the last episode of the year. But I do have a 30-day focus happening right now that I realized is very intentional because in one part, it's setting the habit mechanism in place, if that makes sense. So I'm like really strengthening the consistency muscle of one part of it. And the other part of it is really building it out so that it actually operates as a machine within the next 30 days. So the reason for the 30 days is because I realized I really wanted to have a revenue sprint in the business. So I ran a Black Friday sale that was really awesome. And like a lot of my peers, my numbers were not quite what I expected them to be this year. And so I want to hit certain revenue goals, but not just that. I mean, the reason it's 30 days is because I really feel like I want to put this in action sooner than later. It's not like I want to hit a certain revenue number before the end of the year, but it's more about this is my machine moving forward. And the sooner I build it, the sooner it's going to generate revenue for me. So I want to talk about those two things, but first I want to talk about my word of the year. And I was in a peer mastermind get together. It was kind of a roundup and a kind of a homecoming, if you will, of past alumni from this peer mastermind group and past alumni's current members. And we all got together and I loved the prompts that we were given. So as we were being put into breakout rooms, one of the prompts that we were given was, what are you proud of in 2025? So I want to ask you that, I want to share that with you as a prompt to you. How would you answer that question? What are you most proud of in 2025? The second question was, or the second prompt was, what is on your vision board for 2026? And I love this idea of not just what would you love to do in 26, but what's actually on your vision board? Like, what is the concrete thing you want to accomplish in 2026? And I can't remember what the third prompt was. I think it was about, what your word of the year is and why. And so the cool thing is that my word of the year kind of prompted me to be really specific about what's on my vision board for 2026. And so I was in a breakout room with my friend Cheryl Rarick, and she shared about how in the last year, her word of the year was BDE. So if you don't know what that means, the D stands for the male genitalia. And so it was B, big D energy. And what that really means is, and we were chatting about what that means in this group, was a lot about having like the audacity that men typically have in business, and women typically feel like they are not qualified for it. They're not ready yet. There's got to be other people who are better than me. Why me? Why should I be the one chosen? In fact, one of my friends, Nata Salvatore, who was in this group, she was saying how she was at an event and she was watching all these speakers, and she was like, why are these, in this case, they were men. Why are these men on stage when they're terrible? The speakers happen to be terrible. I'm not saying all men are terrible on stage. Absolutely not. But she was saying, I know women who are so much more qualified and such better speakers than these men. And yet these are the guys on stage. And again, there are fantastic male speakers and there are also terrible female speakers. But the idea of the audacity is what she wanted to talk about. In fact, I would love to have her on the podcast to share about that. And so she was talking about that. We were talking about BDE. Cheryl's like, I didn't quite get to live out my BDE year because she had a health issue. And so she's like, I'm using BDE again this year for 2026. And I love that. And I was like, you know what? And she even suggested, she was like, if anybody wants this word, I am sharing it with everyone. And so for me, I originally was like, yeah, that seems like it aligns with what I want to do in regards to visibility and growth that are big, big focuses of mine for 2026. But I love the word grit. And grit to me is basically the machine that's operating under the surface, regardless of what's happening on the surface. So things are happening on the surface, and regardless of whether they're going really, really great or whether things are really challenging and taking a lot longer than you thought they would, maybe things aren't working out as well as you imagined. Maybe things aren't as easy as you imagined. I can think of a couple of things that happened this year. I had somebody pull away from email list swap that I know was going to be really meaningful and helpful for me. And yeah, so they pulled away, and that was a really, that was a bummer experience. And this is just like one thing that came to mind. But the idea of grit is that regardless of what's happening, whether things are great or not great, you keep going. It's the engine that keeps running regardless of what's happening on the outside, regardless of the results, regardless of what's really going on. And so I love the word grit for that reason. And it got me thinking that, grit is a thing that's still working, and the engine that's going and being consistent with the visibility and the growth desires and goals that I have for this year. And by this year, I mean 2026. I feel like I'm already there. So it's hilarious to think that we're still in 2025. I love that. And so I started playing around with the idea of BGE, like big grit energy. And so that was, at the time of this call, my word for the year of 2025 or 2026. And I have since changed it. I was actually swimming at the beach that I described in the Bahamas in this like turquoise water. Like as soon as we got off the taxi and we walked a little bit, down this unpaved, hill towards the beach, I saw this like gorgeous turquoise water. And, initially I played with my son for a little bit in the sand, and then I had to go for a swim. We actually went for a swim together, and then I went for a swim by myself, just kind of stayed in the water. And as I was staying in the water, I was saying a prayer, and I was really praying to God to show me the best moves for my business. I always tell God, like, God, you're the CEO of my business, and I want you to show me what to do. I want you to pave the way for me. I want you to clear the path before me. And the word that came to my mind was the word multiply, multiply. And that was my prayer. It's like, God, I want you to multiply every single action that I take in my business. I want you to multiply every single interaction, every single email I send, every single ad I run, every dollar that I put into an ad. Just multiply that, multiply that. I want every post, multiply, every word, multiply, every brand video that gets published, multiply. And this word multiply just kind of really, really stuck with me. And ironically, I was just gifted a book by Taylor Welsh. It's called Currency of Heaven. And in the introduction of the book, the man says, I can't remember exactly how he starts it, but like, this is for those of you who want to multiply what you're doing. I'm totally butchering it, but it literally had the word multiply in there. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was just gifted this book. And I started reading it and I loved it. So far, I'm maybe, about a fifth of the way into the book. But the word multiply was like in the literal introduction describing what you're about to read. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And so I wanted to share that word with you guys because that is, again, my word of 2026. And I am very excited about that word. So next up, I also wanted to share with you about my 30-day focus. And as I mentioned before, there are two parts of this plan. It's a very simple plan. I'm looking at it on my notebook here on my desk. And there's, again, a part of the plan that is exercising the muscle of consistency. And that part has a lot to do with my visibility and growth. And the second part of this plan is building and then running the play. So the first part of the plan is basically centered around two things. So they're not the only things I'm going to do. I'm going to continue publishing this podcast. I'm going to continue sending my emails. But the idea is that I'm using content creation in a much more sophisticated and consistent way. So it's really becoming part of my daily actions in my business. The second thing is stage pitching weekly. So every week I'm going to make sure that I'm sending out at least 5 podcast pitches. I'm pitching stages every week. I have a whole pitching time block on my calendar, and I have a certain number of goals for each of the stages and podcasts that I want to pitch to. I also want to pitch to be on people's masterminds and memberships. I've spoken on a bunch of different masterminds and memberships, and I'm love speaking in masterminds and memberships. But part of landing those opportunities is pitching them. So pitching is going to be a big part of my time in addition to content creation. Now, the third pillar of visibility, which is running ads, kind of falls into the other column of my plan. So the other column of my plan is all about the engine that's really going to drive revenue for my business, which is a really kind of simple engine right now, which is I'm going to be running ads to the Instant Yes machine. And the Instant Yes machine is then going to eventually take people into my webinar. And on that webinar, I'm going to sell the brand video accelerator. And so that is the simple funnel, or the very high level, pun intended, because my business is built on high level version of my funnel. And yes, I'm going to be running, sending nurture emails. Yes, I'm going to be also creating a VSL for YouTube. I'm going to be focusing on creating a lot of different ads. So testing a lot of creatives and a lot of copy. And yeah, those are the two parts of my business that I'm most focused on. In fact, I have very little that I'm outside of this that I'm focusing on. My goal for 2026, until further notice, and probably that will be the case until I hit a 7-figure business consistently, is just to work on these two pillars of the business. So visibility, growth, list growth, follower growth, and then running ads to this funnel. I'm also going to run visibility ads. So I'm going to be running 2 types of ads at the same time. So With that said, my friends, that is what I'm focusing on for 2026, or at least the next 30 days. And I'm going to do a whole rundown of my 2026 goals and marketing plans, probably by the end of the year or the beginning of next year. But I'm going to get into a bit more detail, in part because I've just started doing that and I haven't finalized every part of that planning for next year. But I am so excited. In fact, I keep repeating this over and over because I heard it from somebody else and I was like, okay, I'm going to claim this for myself as well, that 2026 is already my favorite year. And so I am excited about the new people I'm going to meet, the relationships that I'm going to deepen. I actually have like a visibility meetup with a friend of mine every week on Mondays at 3 p.m. We always meet. And today we met and we went over like, these are the podcasts that we're pitching. These are the people that we're going to reach out to. And we have a goal for the end between now and the end of the year. And all of these things are just, I have so much clarity right now. And that is the most exciting part, is that none of this is confusing to me. And the things that I'm not incredibly good at, I have really great people that I've identified that I can learn from. And I already have their course. So I'm going through these trainings. I'm implementing it. And I know that in part I will get better by doing. So I'm very, very excited to work with someone to bring in people to a live webinar and then just honestly giving that training over and over again till I get so great at it that I'm converting like crazy from this one webinar. So with that said, I wanted to wish you a fantastic rest of your year. I know we're going to talk again before the new year, but I'm just so excited. We have 2 weeks left of the year. I'm so excited to crush the next 2 weeks. Maybe you were slowing down. Maybe you were taking time with family. Maybe you're wrapping things up before the end of the year. I feel like I just took vacation, which I absolutely did. And so I'm really excited to just ramp things up so that by the end of January, which is kind of this 30-day period, quote, more or less, that I'm counting 30 days. It's actually more like 45. But by the end of January, I want this engine to be running and I want my visibility to be growing every single day. All right, my friends, thank you so much for listening into this episode of Empire Secrets. I wanted to also, if you have not grabbed the Instant Yes Machine, oh my gosh, I cannot recommend it enough. It has been a game changer. I get emails from people nearly every day writing me to tell me how amazing this has been for their copy, how much insight there is. There are people who literally create GPTs as part of their business and sell them. And they are obsessed with the Instant Yes Machine. They say that they did not have high expectations for it and it had been amazing. And one of the things that I am considering for next year is to turn the Instant Yes Machine into a membership, into a GPT that you have to subscribe to, not a membership, sorry, a subscription-based tool. And so if you want to check it out while it's still dirt cheap to own for a lifetime, just go to brandmagnetic.com/yesmachine and you can get it right there. You can use code EMPIRE for a couple bucks off. And I hope you are doing well and have a fantastic rest of your year. Bye, everyone. See you on the next episode of Empire Secrets.